There has been a pressing issue that this country has faced for decades. The majority of the American people do not know what to do when encountered by law enforcement when being pulled over. The fact is that Americans are afraid of the police. The media and past viral situations have tarnished the trust that the citizens might have had for law enforcement. You can imagine how helpless you would feel if you ran into an angry tyrannical officer determined to make you believe that they are the law. I believe now more than ever, people need to be educated on what to do when encountering the police, as well as the rights they have and the correct way to exercise them. One thing, before we get into it, police are not trained to deal with law-abiding citizens. They're trained to deal with criminals. So I urge you to fight back without violence by exercising your rights, respectfully. You have the right to remain silent. The things you say while in presence of law enforcement will be used as evidence against you. As I stated, they're trained to make you fumble your words, and search for any evidence of any crimes that you may have committed or that they may use for probable cause to search for further evidence that they can use against you, or anyone with you. You do not have to consent to warrantless searches or seizures. Police must state a reason for the traffic stop or detainment with reasonable and articulable suspicion. Police must identify themselves, and give their name, and badge number or credentials card when asked. You are not required to identify yourself, unless you have committed a crime, or have been suspected of one, and the cop must provide evidence of articulable suspicion of that crime that you are suspected of committing. Unless you are the driver of a vehicle that's been pulled over for a traffic infraction. In that case, you must provide driver's license, insurance, and registration, as well as crack the window enough for the officer to legibly hear you. And, as a courtesy to the officer's safety, keep your hands on the steering wheel as he approaches, so that he has no reason to suspect that his safety is in danger. This will make him think you respect officer safety. Being courteous and respectful is always the safest and most effective way to exercise your rights. But be assertive and firm on your them. Police do not have the right to pull you out of the vehicle for a traffic stop unless they have a sufficient reason to believe that you are armed and dangerous, or that their safety is in harm's way. You have the right to an attorney before any questioning has taken place, and if you state that you would like a lawyer present, then the officer must cease all questioning until you have a legal representative present. You have a right to request the presence of a superior officer if there is any issue with the traffic stop. The peace officer must then call his superior to come assist him the rest of the way. You have a right to film the police anytime, or anywhere as long as you are on public property and are not in any way interfering with any investigations or police work. A police officer cannot, at any time, obstruct the view of any camera that is meant to be recording, and doing so makes that official civilly liable, and no longer has immunity as a police officer, therefore making them personally liable in a lawsuit because they're considered working outside the color of law. Same goes for if you're on public property funded by the state and are illegally trespassed by police for recording. A Terry stop allows the police to briefly detain a person based on reasonable suspicion of involvement in criminal activity. Articulable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion, or articulable suspicion, is a fundamental principle that restricts the authority of police officers to infringe upon an individual's privacy. This principle requires officers to have a valid and supportable basis to believe that a person is engaged in criminal activity before they can lawfully detain, search, or confiscate their belongings or property. Without this standard, law enforcement officials could potentially misuse their power and violate the privacy rights of individuals without any legitimate justification. When getting pulled over by the police, you have several constitutional rights that are protected by the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments of the United States Constitution. These include: 1. The right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures under the 4th Amendment. 2. The right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself under the 5th Amendment. 3. The right to have an attorney present during any police questioning under the 6th Amendment. To best exercise these rights, It is recommended to remain calm, respectful and polite, and cooperative with the police officer. However, you do not have to answer any questions beyond providing your name and driver's license. You can also politely decline a search of your vehicle or person if the officer does not have a valid warrant or reasonable suspicion. If you are being arrested, you should clearly state that you are invoking your right to remain silent and request to speak with an attorney as soon as possible. It is important to remember that, while you have the right to assert your constitutional protections, it is important to do so in a respectful and non-confrontational manner to avoid escalating the situation. Cops that have the tendency to trample on one's rights usually will be set off from someone who semi-aggressively asserts their civil liberties. Sometimes even if the person claims they know their rights at all. If you're asked to search your vehicle and you do not want to consent to it, then, it is best to respectfully ask if that officer has a warrant to do so, and ask to what articulable reasonable suspicion to believe that a search is appropriate. And if they don't have a warrant, then just politely decline. If they still pry, then simply state that you would like to request a commanding officer, and patiently wait for their arrival. Cops are only allowed to search you for weapons if they have reason to believe you are indeed carrying. Which means, anything in your area of reach, that could house a gun or other dangerous weapons, is subject to search. However, this does not mean that they can look in any closed containers or locked boxes, trunks, ashtray, glove box, closed palm etc. If it's too small for a gun or not easily accessible, a locked box is not easily accessible, they are not allowed to search for anything that isn't considered an immediate threat to officer safety. You can't really fit a weapon in a closed fist. Here are some basic scenarios to get an idea from. When detained, a cop cannot reach into your pockets and pull anything out that doesn't feel like a weapon that can cause harm to them. They can only give you a thorough frisk down to ensure that you are not carrying a weapon for their safety, including your wallet to identify you. You are not required to give your identity, unless you are arrested, or they have reasonable articulable suspicion that they can clearly prove. A cop cannot stop you from filming unless you are arrested. You have the right to film police in any public place or building funded by the state. You cannot be trespassed or charged with any crime for filming in public areas. Freedom of press. You cannot get arrested or trespassed for filming in a public place. The only thing you're required to do when pulled over is provide your identification, proof of insurance, and registration. This may vary by state. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. First 2023 subscribers are automatically entered into a drawing for various prizes and cash giveaways. Check the link in the description to see the Mobile Eyes app. To fully protect your rights. Revolutionary new invention.